a few things, and I'll say a few things, and we'll take some questions.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out. Governor DeSantis is out on a 99-county tour, and for those of you that have spent time here in Iowa, you know that Senator Grassley has done this for years. It's something I've just completed my 9th year of doing, and it's a great way to get out and hear concerns from Iowans. And so the governor was here in Montgomery County, right here at the History Center, and was able to share his message with a number of folks and took a lot of great questions from the audience. So continuing with great Iowa tradition, we're glad to have you in Montgomery County, Governor DeSantis. Sure. Thank you for your service, both in uniform, which, folks, is something that is extremely important, and your time as a governor as well, serving your constituents in Florida. I spoke just very briefly about energy security, about border security, national security, and economic security, and that is something that has been very important to the governor as well, and he really did a magnificent job of talking about the plans that he implemented in Florida and how Floridians are really doing quite well. So again, thanks for coming out and taking part in this great event this morning.
Great. Well, and Senator, thanks for being here. It's great to be in our 56th county in Iowa, and we were really overwhelmed. It was a great crowd, great questions. And yes, these issues, there's a lot of them that we discuss, but clearly the economic anxiety out there, the fact that families are falling further and further behind, and then the disaster at the southern border. I mean, those are the two issues that people are looking at and throwing their hands up and saying, we need a new direction with this. And Biden's missing in action on both of those. He's actually says Bidenomics as if that's a good thing. That is not a good thing when people can't even afford all their groceries like they used to, when their gas prices are going up, and when buying a home and raising a family is becoming cost prohibitive for hardworking, successful people. And that's not what the American dream's all about. And then, of course, on the southern border, you even have it now to where that has a plan to stop it at its core, including confronting the Mexican drug cartels. That will save lives. People are dying as a result of this, and those deaths need to stop. Yes, sir. You're local. You have a local?
Yes. I think you mentioned there are obviously term limits potentially for Congress and President, or Congressman. So just kind of talk about you feel that that's something that's needed right now.
Term limits for members of Congress is necessary. Term limits works. Now, the people in Washington will say, oh, if you have term limits, then the lobbyists are going to run the show, right? Well, in reality, that's already happened. I mean, like, the swamp is the swamp without term limits. Are you kidding me? In Florida, we have term limits for legislation. And what happens is you will have a 2-year tenure to be, say, Speaker of the House or President of the Florida Senate. And your incentive is not to just stay in office for another 20 years. Your incentive is to get things done. Your incentive is to leave a legacy. And so it's been very beneficial. We've certified from Florida an amendment. I think another 10 or 20 states have done it. I'll work with states to do it because I don't think Congress would do it, but I think it would be a good reform. I also think a budget amendment to the Constitution would be a good reform. I think giving the president line item veto authority would be a good reform because you have these bloated bills. The president could hack some of the spending off. I think would put us in a much better space.
Governor, thoughts on Romney retiring?
No, I mean, I think it was the right decision, and I'm a big, I'm friends with Mike. I'm in Utah, who I think's done a great job as a senator, and I'd love to see someone step up that could team up with Mike to really bring some change to Washington.
Hi, Governor. I'm curious. Do you think that the Big Three should meet UAW workers' demands for a 40% pay increase over 4 years?
So I'm not read enough into the details to be able to comment on that specifically, but I will say this. What Biden is doing with his push for electric vehicles is ultimately going to be destructive of the automobile industry as a whole, partially because people just don't want them in certain numbers. I mean, look, Elon Musk has a product that people like, it's a successful company, but to force that across the fleet of our automobiles is not going to work, and so we are not going to allow that to happen. We're going to save the American automobile. That's going to be something that I'm going to be articulating when we do our energy policy next week, but I think it's very, very important that Americans have the ability to buy traditional automobiles, and so we will do that. And in terms of those jobs, Ford workers are going to be better off if people can buy a gas-powered Ford F-150. I can tell you, I used to have an F-150. I would not have wanted it if it was electrical. Nothing wrong. It's just that's not the way it goes. So we want to have strong auto industry. We want big jobs there. But the way Biden's taken it, I think it's going to be bad. I think it's short-sighted.
Yeah,
Senator,
and Governor, welcome to Iowa, because we don't have a lot of those electric charging stations. Those cars don't work here.
Well, even the cars that aren't electric are going to be,
No, I know. I'm not read in enough on
Okay,
that
got it.
to be able to do. I know I've seen it in the news. I just haven't been able to. But the larger thing is, I think a healthy American auto industry is really going to be one where they're not shoehorned into doing all electric. I mean, here's the thing about the electric that I think that bugs me about what Biden's doing. How do you get the electric vehicles? Well, you need a lot of these minerals that get mined from the earth, right, to be able to do the batteries, all this stuff. And that's done primarily in China. We could do it here, and he's foreclosing the ability to do it here in the United States. So if you think the EV is like the end-all be-all, then you turn around and say, no, we're not going to do this stuff here. We're going to still rely on China. We can be totally reliant on our own production for energy, and that's what we should be doing. So it really doesn't make sense to make us more dependent on the Chinese Communist Party for key things involving. And then the final thing, just on that, new cars have gone up 70% in the last 5 or 6 years. That is cost prohibitive for people. And having a car, it's one thing to live in like Manhattan where you may not need it, but in most parts of this country, you need to have an automobile to be able to get to work, get the kids to school, do what you got to do, pick them up from activities. And that's becoming increasingly out of reach. I'm concerned about how all the supply chain is still lingering to where we're not going to have enough production. There can be issues, of course, with what's going on there. So these are big, big issues that affect people's ability to get the job done for their families in ways we haven't really seen like this in our country, where you've had this much of a crunch. You probably got to go back to the late 1970s.
Last question.
Senator, do you think that former President Trump is campaigning enough in Iowa and spending enough time with Iowa voters?
I think Iowa voters really want to see the candidates. They want to be able to come out, ask questions of the candidates, hear about what their vision for the future is. That's what Iowans really want. They want to be able to reach out, shake the hand of the person that they want to support. So I love to see involvement. Governor DeSantis is doing the 99 county tour. He's meeting with those Iowa voters. That makes a difference.
And, I, against governor, Florida is a very big state, obviously. There's a lot of media that you do to campaign, but I was the first governor to do public events in all 67 counties. In Florida, we've got a lot of rural counties, and I'll tell you, the fact that you show up there, it makes a huge difference. I mean, if you look at my election outcome in 2022, we were winning rural Florida by margins that you wouldn't even think were possible. Like these are margins that like Middle East dictators would get, right? Where if you don't vote for them, you could end up in jail or something. But we were getting 85, 88, 90, 92% in some of these areas, and Republicans have always done well there. But part of it is I showed up, I took the time to listen to them, answer their questions, and I think it's the same thing here in Iowa. This is an important time for choosing for our country and our party about what the right way forward to go. And if we choose right, we have an opportunity to reverse this country's decline and really leave a great legacy for our kids and grandkids. If we choose wrong, the damage can get a lot worse, and we may not be able to pull ourselves out of that hole. So I think Iowans are very keen to the stakes of this nomination and this election, and they want to be able to kick the tires. They want to be able to ask you questions. They're entitled to do that as voters who make this decision. And anybody that's not willing to come here and be on the ground and do it, that just gives off a sense of entitlement, as if somehow that they have to vote for you, regardless of you earning the vote. I totally reject that. You have to earn people's votes. You've got to show up. You've got to show them what you're going to do as president. I'm fortunate I can tell them they can trust me because I've delivered what I said down in Florida, in the nation's third largest state. And everyone that comes up to me they do appreciate that, and they thank me for the leadership there, but that's what you got to do. So we're going to be here in all the early states, of course, but you got to do it. And I'm just glad, I mean, you know, Senator Ernst has been doing this. Obviously, Senator Grassley with Governor Reynolds is doing her case. She always asks me, how many do you have? Because she wants to make sure she's ahead of me for this year. But it's a great tradition, and you have voters that really care. They care about the future of the country, and they're well read on the issues, and they ask really, really good questions. That's the way this process is supposed to work.
What do you make of
Thanks,
the
guys.
organization?
We'll see you soon.
Thanks for coming out.